Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Homestand Show. It's Albert Vartanian and my co-host James Sharman. What a way to start the show on Sports Grid. We have a blockbuster trade in the NHL, and it involves the Toronto Maple Leafs. This time, they've acquired Jake McCabe and Sam Lafferty from the Chicago Blackhawks. A lot in this deal, so please bear with me. A conditional 5th-round pick in 2024, a 5th-round pick in 25 from the Blackhawks, from the Leafs, for forwards Joey Anderson and Pavel Gogolev, a conditional 1st in 2025, top 10 protected, and a 2nd-round pick in 2026. And Chicago retains 50% of Jake McCabe's salary. Dubas has done it again.
All in.
All in.
Birdie, all in at this point. You know, who needs scouts? Who needs drafts? Who needs draft picks? It's all about winning now. Listen, is it a blockbuster? Listen, lots of moving parts here, right? But is Jake McCabe a blockbuster? It's a big deal for the Leafs.
In Toronto, it's a blockbuster.
Yeah, for Toronto media, it sure is, yeah. It's an interesting one. They needed, I think, more defensive help. They got more depth now in that bottom 6 as well. Lafferty brings more of an edge as well.
Yeah.
So if you compare the Leafs now to a week ago, prior to the O'Reilly trade, a lot more snarl, a lot nastier. Defensively, I think a lot stronger as well. And given what Tampa did yesterday, bringing in Giordano, I think they had to do something. And this is a decent trade. And again, Matthew Nyes stays on the books, right? So he's doing this with all this draft currency. And you know, like I said, to hell with the summer. It doesn't matter. It's all about winning cups now, right?
In the span of 10 days, Ryan O'Reilly, Achari, McCabe, Lafferty, without losing a significant player. You're losing a lot of picks, right? But you're not paying a king's ransom. If you look at what Tampa paid for Tanner Jeannot,
5 picks.
Which kind of scares me. It tells me that Tampa can see a real player in there. Maybe there is who can really help them in the playoffs, but the Leafs didn't have to do that.
But Tampa also know that they've got 2 cups under their belt, right?
Right.
They know what it means to their fan base. They throw all in now, maybe another run or 2 runs at another cup. You get 3 cups. Who cares about, you know, the next 6-7 years when Stamkos and Kucherov get older and maybe leave town? It doesn't matter. And I think Carl Dubas is thinking the same thing right now. We've got this window. The window's still wide open, right? It's not closing just yet.
Yeah.
Matthews isn't up just yet. Nylander's not up just yet. So why not go for it? And I think that East looks like a really strong conference.
Yeah.
And you have to man up and weaponize at this point.
And after a weekend where we saw a slew of trades, you know, Boston getting in the mix, Timo Meier going to New Jersey, and we got obviously Tanner Jeannot going to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Let's talk about some of the money and how this is all going to work. McCabe has $4 million per left on the next 2 seasons, but like I said, Chicago taking 50% of that. Sam Lafferty, 1 more year at 1.15. The Leafs can obviously make it work with these numbers, but there has to be a little bit of finessing in terms of what to do with the cap space.
Yeah, you wonder what it means for a Michael Bunting next season. Pierre Engvall, I mean, if he's even there by that time, he could be moved out, who knows. But yeah, I mean, there's some moving parts here, right? It's interesting. It's fascinating, really, from the boring side of things, that the cap dynamics, mechanics of hockey. But that's what it is nowadays, right? It's as simple as that. So bottom line is the Leafs are better now for a playoff run than they were a few hours ago. So
absolutely,
you got to do it, I think, at this point.
And Dubas checked all the boxes. What Leafs need? They need another top 6 guy. They got that in Ryan O'Reilly. They need some depth in the bottom 6. Achari, now Sam Lafferty. They needed some more depth on defense, and they picked that up in Jake McCabe. I would say, well, who knows how these guys are going to fit into this Leafs lineup and how they're going to play. Jake McCabe hasn't been in the playoffs. Lafferty's got 1 game in the playoffs. I would say the biggest question mark left is, what can Samsonov and Murray do in the playoffs?
Yeah, goaltending obviously is the big question mark. Murray's coming back slowly from injury. He's going to be with them out west. Is he playing or not? I don't know. Back-to-back midweek, of course. So probably Samsonov and probably Wall will be back in there again. But whenever McCabe joins his team, like you said, it's a much stronger defensive core at this point. He's played for 2 really bad teams in his career, Buffalo and Chicago. Yeah. And his numbers are pretty good.
He's a +7 on this Chicago team.
This horrible Chicago team, right? So I think it's a really good move with a lot of potential. And with the extra couple of years left in the contract, at 50% retained, that's a great move. And Lafferty too. Carl Dubas said he wouldn't trade picks for rentals, and he did that for the O'Reilly deal. He hasn't done it for this deal because they'll have term.
Which he might not be a rental come the end of the season. Who knows what's going to happen there?
Yeah.
So where does Jake McCabe fit in? I'm just looking at their lines here right now, and you're not going to replace a Morgan Riley or Brody at the top. Giordano, Liljegren, maybe Liljegren, but they've been like Liljegren plays well with Giordano, and at the bottom, I could see maybe him and Sandin getting minutes.
I could see Sandin though losing his spot on the blue line as well in that third pairing.
So it'd be
Lafferty. If Lafferty's playing on the left side,
McCabe and Connor Timmins, something like that.
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe. Now, Jordy Ben cleared waivers, right, so he can be sent down now as well.
Yeah, Justin Hall's in the mix
And
as well.
maybe he's not done yet, right? I mean, this is a weird week, and there should be some trades left for Friday, you'd hope.
Yeah.
I know the major networks hope so, because right now they're thinking, are you kidding me? All these big deals happening.
It's always how it
if
happens.
Kane happens tomorrow, which
Yeah.
is being rumored right
Yeah.
now, it could be a very quiet Friday. But, you know, potentially there's more things that move here for the Leafs
The
as
East
well.
is getting scary. I want to ask you something, just your opinion on Matt Murray. So he's joining the team on the road trip, scheduled to play relatively soon. We're not sure when. If you're Sheldon Keefe and Dubas, when do you start him? Do you wait till after the deadline, or do you put him in before, just in case maybe he picks up an injury or something happens, and then now you need to assess whether you need a goalie or not?
It's a good question, but I mean, it's Matt Murray. He could pick up an injury before the deadline or after the deadline. It doesn't matter. It's Matt Murray, right? He's a China doll, as you call it in
So I
soccer
guess if they're going to
parlance.
make the decision on a goalie, they've done it by now.
I think so, don't you? I mean, listen, he put all his chips on the table in the summer when he signed both these guys. Matt Murray wasn't cheap, right? You know, over $4 million per year in a cap hit there.
Yeah.
He knew that these guys were his guys, I think, for the playoffs. And it's worked out pretty well so far. I know Murray's always hurt, right? But he's played pretty well when he's healthy.
Yeah.
Samsonov's playing pretty well too. I say it's bang average.
Yeah.
And that's just fine.
Bang
right?
average is just fine,
Yeah,
right?
it is.
He needs one more win to tie his career high, Ilya Samsonov. Lots going on in the NHL. Big trade from the Leafs. Lots of trades over this past weekend. We'll get into some more Toronto Maple Leafs action. They beat the Seattle Kraken coming up in the next block. All right, welcome back to the Homestand Show. Albert Vartanian, James Sharman. We're just talking about a big deal made by the Toronto Maple Leafs in the National Hockey League. They get Jake McCabe and Sam Lafferty from the Chicago Blackhawks. Also, the Blackhawks holding on to 50% of Jake McCabe's salary. Good deal for the Toronto Maple Leafs off the back of a weekend where we saw tons of trade. Timo Meier, who's been on the board forever, finally moved. We're hearing reports of Patrick Kane probably moving to the Rangers come this Wednesday. He's been a healthy scratch for the Blackhawks over the past few games. But let's get back to this weekend. A lot happened this weekend. Let's give some shout outs. You know, let's look back, get some shout outs to some people who did some good things. And James, I want to start with Damian Lillard. 71 points. It's something you don't really see in the NBA. Well, actually, this season, this is the
Twice
second
this
time
season.
this has happened.
It's been a crazy year for scoring, right?
Over the last 20 games, let me drop this one on you. Damian Lillard, 6 40-point games, 1 50-point game, 1 60-point game, and now a 70-point game.
It's not bad, is it?
Not bad for a guy who's plus 49,000 and win the NBA MVP.
He's averaging, what, 32.5 points a
Yes,
game?
he's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is one of those guys that is a star, but he's almost a reluctant star, I suppose.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
But he's 71 points. Only 8 players have ever done that before.
Yeah.
Over 70 points in the history of the NBA. Of course, Wilt's up there with 100 points.
Is anyone ever going to touch that? I mean, he hit 40 at the half. To get to 100, you got to be at least 50 at the half to even make it possible.
I don't think
The last
so.
closest, I believe, was Kobe Bryant,
Kobe?
81 points, obviously, on the
But
Raptors.
that was a joke, though.
Yeah. The scoring in the NBA is going crazy. Look at the Clippers-Kings last night, the second highest scoring game in NBA history. 351 points scored in that game. Double overtime,
crazy.
of course.
I love the Lillard, though. You know, post game he complains about having a drug test, right? Having a blood drug test.
Yeah,
You know,
you
and-
do well, you get the test.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, listen, it doesn't matter whether you scored 71 points or not. You know, you are subject to certain tests. He had a urine test 2 weeks ago. This is his first blood test. And he doesn't like needles, apparently. So the quote was, they know that I'm scared of needles. I know I've got a lot of tattoos, but when you're doing a blood draw, it's different than tattoos. And by the way, I've got some tats. So do you.
Yeah.
It is different.
Yeah.
Right? I hate getting needles.
Yeah, I got the one. It was just a little bit of cursive, which was not much.
Right.
But if you look at him, I think we have an image of Lillard. He's got from
He's covered,
basically
man.
from the collarbone down.
Yeah.
He's tattied up.
Yeah, and collarbones are extremely painful from what I understand.
Do you have one on the collarbone?
No, I haven't got a collar. Not a collar. I've got a bit of a sleeve here.
Yeah.
And yeah, tattoos hurt, but it's a good kind of hurt,
Yeah.
right? You know, kind
I'm
of
not a fan of
masochistic kind of.
I'm
way.
not a fan of drawing bloody. I can go down actually.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah. I can't look at it. Sometimes I have to play music. Like I have to
Really?
wear headphones. Yeah.
Well, you're a wimp, then, aren't you?
sorry, I am.
Yeah. It's
All right.
not a big
Speaking
deal.
of guys who aren't wimps, Floyd Mayweather.
Floyd Mayweather, he's back.
That's a great segue.
Yeah, it's very well done. Yeah. Wasn't that great, but he's 46 years old, Bertie, right?
Yeah.
And he's back in the ring this weekend in an exhibition
Ugh.
fight against some putz, Aaron Chalmers, right? Who's a bit of an MMA guy, but was more well known for his role on a show called Geordie Shore, right? Now, if you haven't seen this, you have to watch it, right? I mean, it makes you lose all faith with humanity. It's set in the northeast of England. it's reality TV. It's just triple. But anyway, so the Floyd's fighting this guy in a non-contest, non-winnable fight, right?
Yeah.
He wins the fight anyway, even though it wasn't points. He broke his hand in the process. But a shout out to Floyd, he just doesn't give up. But Gary Neville, all right? Gary Neville is a famous soccer pundit over in England right now. This fight was in London. And just by chance, they're at the same hotel. Sean, roll this.
You just dumped your car though in the middle of the road. Are you okay? No word of a lie, it's Floyd Mayweather. This is surreal. Floyd Mayweather's just walked in past my hotel. No, he can dump his car anywhere he wants, that man. He doesn't have to ask people in London to park his car. He's just thrown it in the middle of a road, right in the way of the Whitehall Horse Guards number 3 bus, which, to be fair, is struggling like mad. I mean, honestly, you could not write this. This is the best live video you're ever going to see, by the way. And Carrier's not even come out yet. He's still in the jacuzzi.
I give him a shout out because is there anyone more arrogant in sports than Floyd Mayweather? If you've been in London, you know that you don't just stop your car in the middle of the street blocking a bus. He doesn't care about anything.
Floyd Money Mayweather.
Give it up, man. Floyd Money Mayweather. He made lots of money, but the O2 Arena, which has like, I think 15, 20,000 people, was sparsely filled for that fight. No one cared about it. I think Floyd's done. It's over the hill. Forget about it. Stop fighting. Enjoy your money.
Yeah.
Because that was just ridiculous.
He came out and said, I wish the tickets were put out a lot sooner.
Yes. Not his fault, right?
Not his fault, exactly. He also mentioned it in his post-fight that maybe his last fight could possibly be against Conor McGregor, which I know you hate it as a boxing purist, but everyone will watch that thing.
I mean, I watched Jake Paul, for God's sakes.
Yes, and we'll get into that. That's my next shout-out, by the way. Shout-out
That's a segue.
to yeah, that's a good one. Shout-out to Tommy Fury for not being disowned by his family. He beat Jake Paul via split decision. I think everyone expected an actual boxer to beat Jake Paul, but some people were dismissing Tommy Fury's credentials because he also was a reality star.
Yeah, Love
That
Island.
seems to be the pathway to become a boxer these days. Be a reality star, put on some weight, go train, and you can fight for a couple million.
And idiots like me and you will watch it.
We watched it.
I was texting you last night. Are you watching this? Yeah.
Like, it was bad. It was a bad fight. But the reason I say shout out for not being disowned, here's Tyson Fury talking about what he would have to do to his brother if he lost.
Now, you famously said, nor does he have any right being a Fury. I know you know how to sell a fight, but you wouldn't really disown your brother.
He's getting disowned. Don't you worry about that.
I got to say, it was pretty cool, though. We see Tommy Fury coming to the ring, right?
Yeah.
And part of his crew, his entourage, there's Tyson Fury, one of the greatest, heavyweights of all time.
Yeah.
It
What a
was
monster.
pretty cool.
Did you see his Jake Paul's brother, Logan Paul?
The interview?
Yeah. But even yelling at the Furies.
He's a punk.
He said some...
He's a punk. If Tyson was sitting within arm's reach, there's no way he's saying
Tyson,
that.
if John Fury got a hold of, which one I love.
Terrifies me, by the way.
I love John
Fury. John Fury has done time, like hard time, 4 years for assault.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, he's a bad man. It's John Fury.
fighting
The whole family's bad,
I
right?
know.
But they're just compelling viewing, isn't it? Brilliant.
Let's get to some footy. How about that?
Ooh.
I mean, I'm not happy about this.
No.
But
No.
Casemiro, Manchester United.
You thought I was going to mention Spurs beating Chelsea, didn't you?
Hey!
That'd be all right.
That's a good result.
Man United win the championship. It's the Carabao Cup. So for those non-footy fans out there, it's like you got the Premier League, you got the FA Cup, then you got the Carabao Cup, right? So like the third most important one in English football.
Right.
But it's something. It's a trophy. And
it's like
United,
the Spangler Cup.
Yeah, that's
Right?
not a bad
It's like a
comparison.
Spangler
Yeah,
Cup.
somewhat.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And Man United, who are the most successful English team of all time, as we always hear from United fans, they hadn't won in 6 years, anything, so they won it again. And this kid, he's 31 years old,
Yeah.
Casemiro, he's just incredible. This guy is a pit bull. He got bought by Real Madrid for a lot of money. People thought he's over the hill. He's not what he should be. He's been absolutely brilliant. He brings talent and tenacity, heart and grit. Looking at the Leafs and the O'Reilly trade, it kind of compares a little bit like that with these two players. So
But maybe a lot better, though.
He's won everything. Casemiro
won
hasn't he?
everything,
He's
yeah.
won, how many, is it 5
It
Champions
says
League
he's
trophies?
only lost one ever cup final in his career.
He's been in 14.
That's unbelievable.
13 finals he's won, major finals.
Yeah.
So, as painful as it was for most soccer fans to watch United win a championship, I think in some weird way it's good for the game to see them do well. And Casemiro is just a good guy, I think, as well. So
Yeah, and he was the
good
best
for him.
player on the pitch. But the most important player, this is what I give a shout out to, Wout Weghorst. Won his first ever club trophy.
Big Wout.
Big Wout. He's done a good job.
He has
Manchester
done-
United doing good things. Eric Ten Hag. People were getting on Eric Ten Hag's back because he was dancing with his players.
He won a trophy.
What do you want the guy to do?
What
They
do you
just
want
won a trophy with United.
Yeah, listen. I mean, you wouldn't see Sir Alex Ferguson, United.
No, he wouldn't be
man,
dancing.
doing that. But come on, that doesn't upset me too much.
People get upset over the stupidest things.
People are idiots.
You gotta block those people out, just like Mark Giordano does when he blocked all those shots.
Another segue.
You see that? I'm
First
figuring this
show
whole
on
thing
Sports
out.
Grid, and you're just segueing the hell out of this show.
Mark Giordano has the most recorded block shots in NHL history after picking up a block shot against his former team, the Seattle Kraken. People kind of, what's the word I want to use? Shitting on this guy's record, on the block shots record, but it's really important.
Yeah, it is. But I will say this: they've only started keeping tabs on this record since 2005.
05, 06,
right?
yeah.
There's a number of guys back in. Remember Jyrki Lume? Was it Jyrki Lume?
Former Canuck.
Sean will tell us. He had the huge. No, Craig Ludwig.
Okay. Oh,
Played
wow,
for
what a
the
show.
Minnesota North
Yeah.
Stars and Dallas Stars. Had these massive shin pads. They're absolutely enormous. He would stop a few shots, but that was before they kept these kind of stats on record. But still, it's amazing. Give Giordano credit. He's been a Norris Trophy winner. He's a brilliant player. He's at the end now, but he's still blocking shots. Man, he's tough, and he's also a huge soccer fan.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Do you know who he supports?
I don't know, but once upon a time he bought me a beer at TFC game, and I was extremely drunk at the
Oh,
time.
I love
so
that.
I'm not sure what I said to him, but we spoke about the Flames a little bit.
Yeah. I like him. So we can call him a friend of the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mark
yeah.
Giordano, friend
me,
of the
me
show.
and Gio, we're tight.
You know what? Some people were comparing the NBA block shot record to this block shot record and how much more important the NBA one would be to this one.
Yeah, well, I said more important. I guess
hard
a
to
block
say.
shot in the NBA is pretty much is going in.
Yeah,
You don't know that with these shots from the point.
that's true.
In the hockey, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still important, and I wouldn't do it. I mean, it's a frozen piece of rubber coming at you at 85 miles an hour. I mean,
No
you're
kidding.
pretty stupid, right? Imagine poor old Mark Giordano's shins. When he retires, he could be a mess.
I always think about Ian LaPerriere. Remember when he took the block shot off the face? Oh my God.
In the Perrier. Yeah, good
And look
call.
I'm looking at these block shots. Speaking of block shots, Austin Matthews leading all forwards in block shots.
Yeah, and that's one thing you don't talk about Matthews, right? We talk about him and his goal scoring ability and how he's getting better defensively, really good this season.
Yeah.
But he's also brave, gets in the way, hits a fair amount too for a player in his position and his stature. Yeah, and he blocks, 70 shots, I think it is.
Yeah, 70 plus. People underestimate, I think, putting your body on the line in front of a block shot. Especially, who knows how many block shots he has of certain players like Zdeno Chara and some of those big, heavy shooters from the point, Brent Seabrook, Shea Weber. He's been in front of most of them.
What is a heavy shot? I've always heard this mentioned in hockey parlance.
Yeah.
It's not just you've got power behind it.
I've heard
Or
heavy stick, yeah.
Heavy shot though. Like, what's a light shot? I don't understand.
Little snapper.
We need to get like some real hockey experts on.
Yes,
like,
yeah, we do.
Chris Johnson or someone. We'll get him on shortly, and
Yeah.
we'll ask him what is a heavy shot.
I don't want to take a heavy shot. Well, it depends where I'm at, right?
Well,
not a
whether
heavy
you
shot.
play hockey
Yeah,
or not.
a heavy shot at the bar, maybe once in a while. Boilermaker, like producer Sean just said. Okay, the Toronto Maple Leafs, they were in action last night. They beat the Kraken 5-1. Lots to talk about from that game, including Marner playing with Matthews. Matthews getting back on the score sheet. Nylander doing his thing again, as well as Ilya Samsonov, another win. We'll be talking about that coming up after the break. Welcome back to the Homestand Show. Albert Vartanian, James Sharman with me. Quickly, I want to touch on it once again. The Toronto Maple Leafs made a big trade today, acquiring Jake McCabe and Sam Lafferty from the Chicago Blackhawks. The big thing, Jake McCabe's salary, 50% of it is being retained by the Blackhawks. So Kyle Dubas making moves after a weekend where we saw tons of moves in the Eastern Conference. But the Leafs picked up a big win last night, 5-1 over the Seattle Kraken. Didn't start off so well, but Samsonov makes a couple saves and at least got right back into it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, listen, they weren't great early on, but watching that game, even when the Leafs were playing quite well, Samsonov had to stand on his head at times.
Yeah.
And we were talking off camera, how many times has Samsonov actually stolen the Leafs a game this year? And it's a bit unfair, I think, because when they're scoring 3, 4, 5 goals a game, you don't generally have to steal games for your team, right?
But you got to be solid.
But you have to be solid, right? And I think he was that. We joke around about him being bang average, right? Which is fine.
Yeah.
And he's yet to prove that he's more than that on a consistent basis. But, you have to tip your hat to the guy right now. When Murray went out hurt, there were concerns. What if he falters? And he hasn't done that so far.
Yeah.
I think he's 2 off his record for wins in the season. So he's playing a lot of hockey right now, more than he's done in a number of years. So I think you give Samsonov a lot of credit right now.
Absolutely, and I got to give this guy a lot of credit too. Austin Matthews got him back on the score sheet, snapped a 4-game goal drought. It just so happened that Mitch Marner was put on his line for this game. Here's Matthews on breaking the duck.
I mean, it's always it always feels good to see it go in. I mean, I can't lie. So I think when it's not going in, sometimes it's easy. You try not to get discouraged, but it's hard not to sometimes. But I think you see it go in. I think you just get a little extra pep in your step. And I thought tonight, just as a line, as a team, after we gave up the first goal, I thought we really just dialed in our game and. Throughout the rest of the game, got ourselves a good lead there after the first, and we were able to kind of fend off their push there in the second and close it out in the third period. So, I thought a lot of really good areas for us tonight in our game.
So it's 28 goals for Austin Matthews, on pace for 40, not on pace for the 70 everybody was hoping for, but he had a really good game. And obviously, like I mentioned, Mitch Marner being put on the line with him has helped him a ton. I mean, we'll talk about most important players on this Leaf team shortly, but Mitch Marner, 50 assists in 53 games. Doesn't matter who you put him with, he's making things happen. And now he's got the Leafs' best player scoring again.
I think he's the third best ever, right, for assists for a Leaf. And the top two, Dougie Gilmour.
Dougie Gilmour.
Did it twice. Love my Dougie. I think last night's game was as close to what we saw last year as we've seen all so far this year, as far as Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews linking up so well, because they haven't been that great this season, right? And that's why Marner got moved to the wing for Tavares, right? And Nylander came up, and Nylander's a bigger shooter, I guess, than Marner is a bigger playmaker.
Right.
But I thought it was exciting last night for a Leaf fan. Matthews was explosive. Once again, 2 goals scored in the game for, I think, just the third time, isn't it?
Yeah.
This season. So we discussed, last week, a couple of segments, what is the reason for Matthews' decline, which is ridiculous because, man, he's still going to be on pace for 40-odd goals.
Yeah.
He's a 200-foot player. He's dominant.
In a season where he's been injured as well.
Yeah, right, exactly. So I'm not worried about him. But if he can re-find his chutzpah, his panache, like his 70-goal pace, end of this season, watch out, right? This is suddenly definitely a contending team, right? In what is, you mentioned before, a tough East. Yeah,
really tough East. Credit to probably Sheldon Keefe. I think deserves a lot for what he's doing. In a short amount of time, he has to try and figure out these lines. And he's like, I need to get my top guy going. You need this guy going in the playoffs. Let's throw Marner on there. The second line doesn't really miss a beat either. I mean, look at John Tavares. He's on pace for 37 goals right
quietly,
now.
Right?
Match that total from last season. He seems to really be enjoying playing on the wing. And I was just reading an article in The Athletic by James Myrtle, and he posted some video of Tavares on the ice by himself working on picking up the board on the boards like a winger would do. So it just shows you how all in John Tavares is into playing whatever role he needs to play for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, I mean, for all, I've made fun of him in the past, being a bit boring, not the best interviewer in the world, right? Right, but that's fine because he's 100% hockey. But you can't doubt the guy's professionalism.
No.
He's probably so good for those younger players. This is how you're a consummate pro. Forget about the cameras, which upsets us, but just focus on your game, right, and put in the hard work. And I mean, listen, Tavares on the wings look pretty great so far. Does that mean O'Reilly starts at center for the playoffs? I'm sure at some point. What do you think? We're going to be seeing O'Reilly playing third-line minutes pretty soon, though.
Yeah,
just
I think
experiment, right?
I think it's part of Keith's plan. Right? He wants to see every different version of these lines, and you need to do that before the playoffs. You don't want to be doing that in the playoffs. But it's pretty fluid, what I've noticed in the playoffs. You have to adapt game to game, series to series. I know the Leafs haven't won a series in a long time, but they have the ability to do that now. They didn't have that before.
It's a great point, right? And good chance you'll be seeing O'Reilly start a game, for example, as a third-line center in the playoffs, but by the end of the game, he's playing center in the second line. But it changes, right? Yeah. Remember, going back to soccer here, actually, I'll probably do quite a bit on this show, I'm sure, but Pep Guardiola, considered the best manager in world football of Man City, when asked about formations, which is apparently big in soccer, 4-4-2s, 4-3-3s, 3-5-2s. He goes, formations mean nothing. It's all fluid. It's during the game, different situations called within formations. You just change. You have to be fluid within a game. And I think we're seeing that with the Leafs and modern hockey as well.
And you have players who can play up and down those 4 lines. John Tavares, like I mentioned, moved from center to left wing, as everyone knows. Sheldon Keefe actually came out and said, maybe it's not as big of a deal as everyone else is making it.
I think he's adjusted well. I think that the biggest thing is that it's really just moving from center to wing is not that big a deal. I think we make a bigger deal of it than it really is. And you're going to make a big deal of it of a guy that's played so long in the middle, of course. But in terms of the actual play and making the adjustment, probably the biggest thing is just accepting it and being in the right place mentally. And certainly John has been right from the time I discussed it with him and he just continues to play. And obviously, he's fit in well with O'Reilly. And
I love that, right? Because you know what? It isn't a big deal. us in the media, we have to make it a big deal, right? It's our job to make ridiculous little trivial things a huge deal. Oh my God, captain of the Leafs, he's on the wing.
How much airtime has Noel Achari been getting? A fourth
A
liner.
lot. Fourth liner, yeah, because he's strong and can change the dynamic there. But and it isn't a big deal. Listen, John Tavares has been in hockey his entire life. He's watched guys beside him play wing every game. He often plays 1-2 shifts a game on the wing anyway, right, beside Austin Matthews. It ain't that big a deal, and he's smart, so just adapt to it. But hey, listen, I guess we've got to make stories out of something.
Yeah, and let's talk about some of the most important players on the Toronto Maple Leafs. We had our associate producer, Stevie Z. You'll be hearing a lot about him on this show. He put together his top 5 most important Toronto Maple Leafs as of right now. Number 1, William Nylander. Number 2, Marner. 3, Matthews. 4, Samsonov. 5, Mark Giordano. No
All right,
John Tavares on that top 5.
Which one's the more ridiculous out of those?
I don't know if any of them are ridiculous, to be honest. I personally think Mitch Marner, most important player. Just because
I do too.
It doesn't matter who he plays with, he makes everybody better, and he's probably one of the best players in the league right now.
And I don't see Nylander killing many penalties.
No.
Right, he's all situations.
Good point.
Mitch Marner. He's
Yeah.
out there and he's driving a line no matter where he is. I love, as we discussed, I love Giordano. He might be my favorite Leaf for biased reasons because he's a big soccer fan. 3 times I mentioned soccer now on this show. But come on, 5th most important. Morgan Riley is the top defenseman on this team. He has to be more important than Mark Giordano. Plays way more minutes. TJ Brody, the quiet man of professional sports, just keeps getting his job done. Whoever he plays with, he improves that pairing more important than Giordano at this point. It might change down the stretch. I mean, listen, blocking all those shots is pretty important, right? And that's not to rip Giordano, but it's definitely to rip Stevie Z.
Yeah, of course. Sean, you want something? You got something to say here about the top 5 most important players according to Stevie Z?
Yeah, I don't know. You gotta put Marner at number 1, and then Giordano at 5. I mean, if you put aside the contract, he's not even close. Like the contract is the main reason for me. Yeah, he's a keystone of the defense, but yeah, he's not for me a top 5.
But you know what?
player.
Look, the Leafs have multiple players who you can argue should be in the top 5 most important players. That tells you about the depth of this team that this team didn't have for a very long time.
40.
You know, it's a really good point, and thank you for mentioning that, because here we are as Leaf fans, and you hear that, on social media, tearing this team apart. Do you remember how bad this team was?
Oh.
Not that many years ago. They were appalling. There was nothing to look forward to watching this team, and now they're a wonderful team that may or may not win a Stanley Cup, but I tell you what, they're damn fun to watch.
Yeah, and once again, this will all not matter at all if they don't get past the first round. They are playing Tampa Bay. It's going to be a difficult series, but it looks like Dubas has them on track to be really tough to beat. They're in action next on Wednesday against the Oilers and a back-to-back against the Flames. We'll have that throughout the week here on the Homestand Show. Welcome back to the Homestand Show. Albert Vartanian, my co-host James Sharman, and joining us now, Justin Pooney of Homestand Hoop Talks. You're everywhere.
I am.
Okay. In case you missed it, the Toronto Maple Leafs made a big deal.
No way.
Yes, they did.
Is it a big deal? Can we just this whole blockbuster? Let's learn the word blockbuster.
Yes.
It's not a blockbuster.
Big deal, right?
That's
Lots
a
of
big deal.
moving parts, like
Lots
lots of picks and players coming in and out.
Yes.
Is it a big trade?
Yes.
It's a significant trade.
It's a significantly
not a
big trade.
Ryan O'Reilly blockbuster trade,
Yeah.
though. There's a difference. There's
Okay.
levels to it.
So in case you missed it, whoever's watching the show, the Toronto Maple Leafs got Jake McCabe and Sam Lafferty from the Blackhawks for Joey Anderson and another player. But the big one here is that Chicago is retaining 50% of McCabe's salary. Justin, your opinion on this move by Kyle Dubas?
If there was no salary retention, it would have been a steep price to pay. But it was a deal they had to make. They had issues on their backline that they addressed with Jake McCabe, and they also added some more and much needed sandpaper to their bottom 6, which
Sandpaper.
you like that terminology
Okay.
right there. Brian Burke would love that term
I
right
thought I
there.
was sitting with Brian.
Is he truculent?
He's truculent and pugnacity, right?
Oh.
That's we gotta wait and see for that. But I think it's exactly what the Leafs needed to do. They need to add some more bite to their bottom half of their lineup. And look, you're gonna have to pay a steep price to get a defenseman who can log top 6 minutes. It's just that's the time of year it is. That's the price you're gonna have to pay. But look, Kyle Dubas is going all in. I think he understands, like, this is the last chance I have to get something out of this core before either my job is on the line or certain players have to be in and out. Like, this is kind of like the last opportunity with this certain core to see what they can do. And he's shown his full faith in them and giving them everything they can and then some to make a run come April.
But it's a calculated all in, right? You're giving up some draft picks and some draft capital, but over these past couple deals over the 10 days, he hasn't given up a significant player.
Yeah, it's important, right? Yeah, Matthew Nye's been the big one. He's still there at the moment. So yeah, I think it's smart. I like what he's done. Do you think he would have done this if Tampa hadn't done what they did yesterday?
I think so.
Yeah?
It's
happening regardless.
It's clear he was trying to fill the holes on this Leafs team, and 2 holes that need to be filled was another bottom 6 guy and a defenseman.
And we saw what Boston did at the end of last week too. So you kind of knew there's kind of it's like a war, right? You send one strike, send another strike. You got to repeat that strike too. So I think Toronto had to send a message because the East playoffs are gonna be an absolute battle. It's absolute. Whether it's in the Metro Division or the Atlantic Division, just teams are loading up in the East, and it's going to be fun come April.
There's no one standing by the time the final comes around. Right, the West are loving this.
Sending a message to his players as well, right?
Oh, I think so. Yeah, it's a good point.
And that's and I think that's the most important thing. That these guys that have been there for so long can understand. Okay, the front office believes in us. They're giving us pieces to help us compete this year, and that should be all the motivation you need, and then some to go out there and perform come April.
And I think if you look at some of the question marks in previous playoffs with this Leafs team, with the Stars, do they really have that extra gear? Have they got that X factor? Will they die for their brothers on the ice when it comes down to it? You see guys like Achari coming in, Lafferty, McCabe, O'Reilly. These guys will die for their brothers on the ice. They've shown that in the past, right? That will, I think, elevate the X factor within the Matthews and the Marners and the Nylanders of the world, which makes everyone better, which makes it really exciting.
Does the lack of playoff experience from McCabe and Lafferty concern you? Because just one game played by Lafferty in the playoffs, McCabe's never been there.
I don't think so because they're not in positions on this roster where they're going to be heavily relied on, right? They're not forced to be the big dogs on the team, right? That still falls on, Tavares, Matthews, Marner, O'Reilly can be part of that group now, Morgan Riley. Like those guys, the pressure's going to be on them. Lafferty, McCabe to take a backseat. They're depth pieces here. So they're not going to have to take the full brunt of all that pressure.
Well, there it is. Toronto Maple Leafs make a big deal. We need to talk about the Toronto Raptors. They finally lost during this Jakob Poeltl era. They lost 118 to 93 against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Donovan Mitchell, Garland, Mobley, Jared Allen. Just a bit too much for this Toronto Raptor team. No Fred VanVleet once again, which I felt they really missed him against the Cavs.
They did, but then again, they were down by 30 points at one point. And Fred VanVleet's a great player. He's an all-star caliber player, but Fred VanVleet's not going to race on a 30-point deficit. You just saw that the Cleveland Cavaliers were a class or two above the Toronto Raptors, right? I even look back at the game on Saturday between the Philadelphia 76ers and Boston Celtics. That was a great basketball game. There's a reason why those two teams are at the top of the Eastern Conference standings. The Toronto Raptors had a nice win against a New Orleans team that's missing Zion Williamson, who's their best player, and have been kind of in a free fall ever since. Then they beat a Detroit team, but it was a lot closer than it should have been, right? That game against Detroit, it was pretty much tight throughout the whole game. The Raptors kind of pulled away at the end. A team like Detroit, you should be taking care of business as you should be. And then you saw yesterday, Donovan Mitchell, 35 points, had his way against the Raptors defense. Pascal Siakam had 25 points, but was very inefficient, took him 24 shots. So
yeah, it wasn't just him though. There was a lack of scoring all around. If you look at Scotty Barnes, 12 points. Trent, 7 points on 2 for 13 shooting. OG, 7 points on just 7 shots. And what's really concerning, I mean, they want to make a push for this play-in playoffs. But look, 14 and 25 against teams above 500. I mean, the next couple of games is some big ones against the Bulls and the Wizards, but those teams below 500. But they're going to play a lot harder considering they're chasing the Raptors.
Yeah, and the Bulls have been playing a lot better since they got Patrick Beverley. Like, their defense is shored up, and they're playing very well right now. Washington, of course, has a guy like Bradley Beal. Kyle Kuzma is back from injury, so we'll see how that goes. This is a very big week for the Toronto Raptors, and you mentioned it, right? Their schedule is the biggest thing. They have the toughest schedule remaining. Like they played New Orleans, they played Detroit. Those were their easy games. Now they get harder. Now let's see what the Toronto Raptors are made of. Can they compete with teams that are above them in the standings and teams that are chasing them but are pretty much at a level playing field? I'm really interested to see how they play this week and how they come out.
Yeah, because you mentioned like there's this so-called weak schedule, right, and the rest of the way, but they still got to beat some good teams to get into that play-in spot, right? And like you mentioned there, you know, they're under 500. I think 10 games under 500 against teams over 500.
No bueno.
Why is that? who is the leadership group in this team right now? Obviously, Fred.
Fred VanVleet. I think Fred VanVleet is the vocal leader. Pascal Siakam might be the best player, but I think Fred VanVleet is kind of that guy where everybody goes to him. He's the kind of like the voice of the locker room because, he came under tutelage from Kyle Lowry. He kind of learned from Kyle Lowry. But I really want to see, and I said last week when I was on here with you guys, Pascal Siakam. Take that step. Become that guy. But also OG Anunoby. We heard all the way going through the trade deadline that he wants a bigger role. He wants a larger role. He doesn't want to be in Toronto because he wants to spread his wings a little bit more. Well, you took 7 shots last night in a game where the Raptors bench outscored the Cavs bench, which is a rarity. The Raptors bench has not been very good this year, and they played better than the Cavs bench, but the starting 5 was just got completely outclassed, right? Gary Trent, 2 for 13. OG did not play very well. And Scotty Barnes, let's face it, he was okay, right? And we saw Evan Mobley, who in flashes in the game yesterday was dominant. And I didn't see it from Scotty Barnes.
You know what I noticed? I mean, as much as the Toronto Raptors needed a big Jakob Poeltl, when you're going up against Mobley and Jared Allen, the Twin Towers there, it was difficult. They didn't have an answer to that. What's Poeltl going to do against those two players, right?
Exactly.
Defensively, they've improved, actually. They're 9th in DTR since Poeltl came back to the team. So the defense has improved, but if you're too slow with the ball and scoring to set up the defense, it's not going to work. And that's something that Nick Nurse touched on as well.
Exactly. And I think like their half-court offense is still bad, right? The Poeltl's helped him on the defensive side of the ball. Absolutely. You could see the impact. He set up, just his presence alone set up a few blocks in the beginning of the game. But their problem is still the half-court offense. They can't set it up properly. There's no fluidity to it. They just can never get into rhythm. And whether that's shot making or finding the open man, it's very evident to me that even if this team does make the playoffs, it's going to be very tough for them to score points, and you need to score points to win basketball games.
So what is the future for this team? Because, I mean, forget this season, right? We talk about teams that can be contenders in a couple of years from now.
Right.
You've got some good young players, Scotty Barnes, you mentioned before. OG, maybe. Siakam could be, he's an all-star right now, youngish player, big new contract coming at some point in the next couple of years. What are they? I mean, are they a big trade away from being a contending team? Or is it more than that?
There's more than that, I think. I think the Toronto Raptors, we know Toronto's not a free agent destination in the NBA, right? So they're going to have to, go in the trade market to get that. Because you saw Donovan Mitchell last night. He was acquired via trade. And Cleveland now is a guy at the end of games that says, okay, give me the ball and I'll take you to the promised land.
We're back to the closer.
Back to the closer thing. And that's what the Toronto Raptors are missing. But also, you look at their bench. Their bench has a lack of depth on there, right? There's not a guy and from the guard position that can go out there and create instant offense. No. Jeff Dowden Jr., he's nice, but he plays like more of that hustle game, right? Malachi Flynn cannot play on the defensive side of the ball. That's why Nick Nurse never plays him, right? So the Raptors need a guy who can come off the bench and provide that instant offensive spark that allows guys like Fred, Gary Trent, OG to, take a little bit of a break. Because let's face it, the Raptors are going to make a run to the play-in or playoffs. Fred, Gary, OG, Pascal, Scotty, they're going to be playing 35, 38, maybe 40-plus minutes a night.
And where the Raptors are right now, they don't have the luxury of being able to go and acquire a play like that. So from now, 20 games left, they have to play at their absolute peak if they want to get into the playoffs. I think they can stumble into the play-in, but to get into a playoff position and catch, the 6th place team, which I think is the Knicks at the moment.
The Knicks right now,
they're going to have to be at their peak, which I don't think they have that ability at the moment.
And here's the other big thing with the play-in tournament. If they finish in 9 or 10, they have to go on the road. And we know role players play better on the road. So even if Brooklyn slides in, Brooklyn's role players are going to play better at home than they would in Toronto. And also, if Toronto loses the first play-in game, they're out if they're a lower seed. If you have home court advantage in the play-in, you get another opportunity to go and play again.
So what I'm hearing from both of you is there's no point. No. What's the point in watching this team the rest of the year?
No, I would say there's
no hope whatsoever.
Yeah,
there's hope.
You want to see what these players are made of when they're put in that position. Personally, do I expect them to get into the play-in? Yeah, probably. Can they win the play-in? Yes. But I also expect them to maybe win one game in a playoff series against Boston or whoever.
Maybe, and that's being generous.
Maybe,
and
that's being
for
generous.
Your first-round pick because you got.
But this is what Masai wanted to see. He's like, I'm going to give them Poeltl. Let's get away from that Vision 6'9" or whatever. Let's put an actual big in there, see how they play, and maybe this is what they're going to build around.
I think we can all agree that Jakob Poeltl has impressed us all through his short stint so far. Like, he was exactly what the Raptors needed. A big man, a traditional big man. That's kind of what this team needed. So That part is fine, but it's kind of you're still seeing the rest of the flaws in this roster that are quite glaring now, especially against good teams.
Yeah, let's look at some odds for the Toronto Raptors. To make the play-in, -425. To make the playoffs, +145. I mean, I think the plan, I don't want to say it's a lock, but I think they're good enough to do it.
Yeah, but the funniest thing is Masai last year basically, talked really bad about the play-in, and now he's kind of changed his
Here
tune.
we are.
Now his team is in the play-in. Look, that's what the NBA wanted. They wanted more teams that were kind of in that middle of the pack to have something to fight for. But at the end of the day, you mentioned the odds. Like, they're pretty much probably going to be in a play-in position.
They're favorites in the East.
I would watch out, though, for a team like Indiana. They have a lot of young talent. Tyrese Haliburton is an all-star caliber player, superstar caliber in the making. He could have really helped this team and elevate them. They were in the top. They were in the top 6 for a while in the Eastern Conference. They can elevate. Chicago's playing a lot better. So it's not set in stone yet. But if the Raptors play like they should, I believe they will be in the play-in.
I just want to get your thoughts on what Damian Lillard did last night. We talked about it earlier on in the show.
I'm surprised.
71 points, dude.
People out east never stay up late to watch Portland games, right? So
71 is significant.
71, and he was efficient. That's the thing. 13 3-pointers. He was efficient at it. Again, I think Damian Lillard, if he didn't play in an era with Steph Curry, he would be regarded as the best shooter of all time.
Of all time.
If Damian Lillard did not play in an era with Steph Curry, he would be regarded in a lot higher of light because he's just such a sniper.
He pulled up from the logo.
But
you know what? Would he be doing that if Steph Curry wasn't there?
Maybe. I don't
Curry
know.
kind of started that
it's,
trend.
It's hindsight's 2020. We don't
Yeah,
know,
totally.
right? But
I love Damian Lillard.
Damian Lillard, again, great player, top 75 for a reason, right?
He got the MVP chance, but not happening.
No, it looks like
Jokic.
Jokic is running away with that right
Once
now.
again, shout out to Jokic and the Denver Nuggets. Raptors back in action tomorrow night against the Chicago Bulls. After the break, we'll run out the show. All right, welcome back to the Homestand Show. Justin Pooney, James Sharman, Albert Vartanian with you. We've reached the end of the show. It started off with a big trade featuring the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Chicago Blackhawks, with the Leafs getting Jake McCabe and Sam Lafferty. We talked about a lot of things, including Tommy Fury and Jake Paul, which we're not big fans of this celebrity boxing stuff, but you're a boxing purist. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Oh, man, I'm glad I didn't pay for the fight, that's for sure. I would not have paid money to watch
You can't
that
say
fight.
it on air, man.
Oh, my bad. Oh, sorry, I didn't pay for it.
Did you pay for it? You got that. We watched it. One of us paid for it. Modern sports, though.
But I think the funniest thing was I was watching it off the British stream, right? And the amount of the slander they were throwing towards Jake Paul was absolutely hilarious. At one point before the fight started, before they walked into the ring, the announcer was like, we just want to clarify that this is actually a fight. Kids, don't try this at home. Kind of like that old thing they used to do before WWE fights.
right.
Like, don't try this at home. But it was also there was no atmosphere in the crowd.
It was contrived, right?
It was very dull, and the fight was dull. But
it really is it's a meaningless fight.
It's an exhibition.
It's 8 rounds. That says it all, right? Doesn't it, really? Completely pointless.
What do you think of Jake Paul as a boxer?
Well, I mean, he could beat me, right? I mean, he's a decent. Well, pretty hard. No, he could crush me. But no, I mean, he knows what he's doing in there. But there's a big step up from being an amateur boxer to fighting a professional boxer, right? And Tommy Fury is hardly a contending boxer, right? And never will be.
No, never.
But I think he kind of, I wouldn't say he schooled him, but to me, it was obvious who won the fight.
It was very telling to me that Tommy Fury was the only one using a jab. We're in a boxing match, and only one man is utilizing a jab. That to me was crazy. And also Logan Paul too, calling out the Fury family. Come on, man.
WWE crap.
Yeah. Sean, what do you got on this Fury Jake Paul fight here? I know you watched it.
Yeah, I watched it, and you guys got to realize there's always going to be a market for this crap. I mean, Floyd Mayweather's fighting for nobody, and nobody watched. But if Floyd Mayweather steps up in competition, you're going to tune in. The next time Jake Paul runs his mouth, you're going to tune in. If Logan Paul, he's doing WrestleMania, like these celebrity guys.
Yeah, it's true.
They exist for a reason,
I want to see Jake Paul, James Sharman.
Hey, now.
I would actually pay money to watch that. I would pay money to watch that.
At the Ted Reeve Arena.
Listen, but the sad point is, like, Sean, I will watch the rematch, right? And I mean, I watched Screech fight once upon a time.
Oh, there you go.
Remember that?
James Sharman against Screech coming up.
I think he died though. I think he did.
Did he?
Yeah.
No.
Not in the ring.
Oh my God.
This is great.